Hey there guys, here's my latest installment for how to model standing up. Hopefully you will like it. Basically, everybody's default when they're in front of the camera is to stand head onto it, which is okay, especially if you're petite, but if you're a little bit larger, it's gonna show your hips being the largest measurement because it's kind of obvious when it's all stacked up like this. So I'm going to show you a few cheats down the road, like shifting all your body weight so it's not stacked, so your eye doesn't see what's the large point on you. But for all you petite ladies out there with the tiny hips, I'll show you a couple easy poses head on. I kind of call it the power stance. And if you're dead onto the camera, making sure your shoulders are back, we'll kind of slender that out. And something else, to make your thighs look a little tinier, you're going to do the S curve, which is basically pushing your chest out and putting your bum furthest away from the camera, closest to the wall, like that. I'll show it side profile. You've got your regular stance here, and then S curve, it's going to be more like that. But your belly's all sucked in. And it's uncomfortable. If it's uncomfortable, you know you're doing it right. But it's going to slender everything out, tighten everything up. You're going to want to make sure you're wearing heels. Even if you're cut off like the way the camera's cutting me off right now, it's going to work out better that way because it's a posture thing. And when you're standing, lots of people put their hands on their hips, but kind of far out where my fingers are actually right on the very edge of being caught in the frame. If you do this, it kind of shows your shape off exactly for what it is. For me, I'm kind of boy-shaped, and ideally everybody wants an hourglass. So bringing your hands a little closer together, put my shoulders back for everybody, booty out. This is going to create a stronger stance, a more interesting dynamic, your whole body flexed kind of position. That would be pose one. If you're feeling really comfortable and you have control of your shoulders, bring them forward. Pose two. If your waist is higher up, bring it higher up. Then you can even hunch when you get more creative. The more interesting shapes you make, the better of the photograph you'll have. Something really easy for you to do just to gain confidence. One shoulder. Looking to the one shoulder, one hand down. You can rest the forearm on your hip a little bit, even if it's like really straight. If you put it straight behind your back, I'm cutting off a limb, so you want to make sure, even if it's just a little sliver of it, that you can always kind of see the majority of your body. And besides that, you have putting all your weight backed up so you can see, all your weight to one side, which would be like this. If you do it kind of halfway, it shows that you're uncomfortable in front of the camera and it doesn't look as interesting. So all the way creates a more interesting shape, and it gives you a chance to play from hip to hip, because eventually all your weight standing on one side, your foot's going to get tired, especially in heels. One thing to note when you do this is I'm still square onto the camera, so whatever's closest to the camera is going to look largest. Keeping that in mind, if I put my bum or my hip further behind, so I took a step back, it's lengthening out this, it's elongating my leg, making me look taller, while making my booty look smaller. And then you have your hips. Don't put your hands together, maybe stagger them, because it's more interesting. Put your one arm down. A lot of people kind of do this and it looks good, but if you flip your wrist out, it just looks a lot more interesting, and it's not as common, and it's such an easy correction to do if you're feeling confident. When your weight gets too heavy, I took a step back to put this further away from the camera. Could even put this closer towards the camera to make you look extra tall. And then you have just the same, hands on hips, could play in the hair. I rest my forearm on my hip when I'm in this pose for a really casual look. If you're lucky enough to be wearing jeans, you can play with your belt loop or a pocket. And then from here, you can tuck one hand away. One hand is it's obvious that you have it. So it will also pop your shoulder out, which is more interesting. Or my favorite, and it'd be really strange if everybody started doing this, but for me it's like a go-to. If my hip's so far out and I'm tired, rest my elbow on it, and I call it the fake smoker. But depending where the camera is, can look really cool. And also from here, if you're feeling very comfortable and you bend into it, don't do this like I'm a pirate, but really elegant. Now you've got, like, if you had a slit in a skirt, in a dress would look very beautiful, head up. Now you're just creating more interesting shapes. And while doing this, because I'm talking, I'm forgetting, actively think about putting your booty, because you'll forget, towards the wall, and there. That just changed my shape so much more. And those are a few easier, simple poses to do, kind of head on to the camera. Something else that's pretty simple, I call it kind of the lazy stance, or you think you're too cool, where you cross your legs over and slouch all your weight to one side. So here my left side's really heavy, and you wouldn't have your head straight on because it doesn't make sense anymore. So that's a good idea for a pose, either side. Here is where I would do, I'm a smoker, lazy smoker, and I'm actually not. Play with your hair, whatever accessory you have. You could be pulling a necklace out. Just the whole time keeping in mind, right now, this hip is actually closest to the camera. So I would just turn a little bit to ensure it's always furthest away. Another option to do is, and it's kind of my favorite, and it's kind of what photographers will always ask you to do anyways, working the camera from the side. If they actually want a shot of you head on, but you're a little bit larger, they'll ask you to stand sideways and then turn your body. This is kind of awkward as it is, with both my toes pointed this way. So if you just kind of cross your legs and go, now you're slendering your body out. Your torso is going to look teeny because your hips are really hard to tell how wide they are. And the higher up, the more you play with your arms, even though it takes more confidence to get used to it, the more slender you're going to look just because you're stretching and elongating your navel and whatnot. From here, you're going to think S-curve and then put all your weight, because this is what's closest to the camera right now. So shifting it all the way to the back, and then S-curve. This is a very common Victoria's Secret stocking catalogs kind of pose, and they're always hugging themselves, but they're laughing. So you have this. An easy pose from here is taking a step out, S-curve. Here is a popular pose from the Victoria's Secret catalog, where they twist, they're playing with their hair, it's really long, they're in a bra and stockings. Sure, some of you know what I'm talking about. And then they're kind of happy and laughing, but my legs are completely sideways. All the weight is on this back leg. The more I put it, the more slender everything looks. And then the torso would be very tiny from this position. There's one where they are completely straight-legged, booty out. They're standing very tall though. All the weight is still on this side, and the balance is actually kind of hard to keep, but who cares if you fall? The photographer will catch it, delete it, and it'll make for a nice frame. And then they had a really hard pose that I really loved, where she's on her toe, and it's about as stretched out as you can go. They've got really long legs, so they can do it. But something like that. And then it's hard to put all your weight on your toe, right? So a lot of it's up here, but I'm shifting my weight still on my back here. Then you have this. One other thing, if you're modeling sideways, here my hands are on my hips. I'll just do this so I create some dimension. My elbow is towards the camera, closest thing towards the camera. So it's gonna look a little distorted, or it's gonna focus here and make me fuzzy. So you're gonna wanna arch it back. And that's basically it. Okay, so the key tips to take away from this video are that, first off, when you're modeling, anything that's closest to the camera becomes the primary focus. It will become exaggerated. So if it's an elbow, it's going to kind of blur this out, and this is going to look enlarged. If it's your booty, it's going to make your booty look a little bigger than you want. So shift your weight away from the lens. Think about creating lengthy, long limbs by putting the opposite, wherever your weight isn't, opposite leg towards the camera. Think of angles. If you're not going to be doing angles and interesting shapes, kind of go for a lazy approach, but change it up and have fun. Photo shoots are meant to be fun and make you feel confident, and if you put all the weight on the wrong side and look awkward and heavy, eventually that side's going to fatigue and naturally you're going to shift it over, and that's probably going to be the frame the photographer shows you anyways. Feel free to send me more questions and ideas for videos. And thanks for watching, everyone.